Welcome back to Rounding the Bases, Extra Innings on YouTube. If you have not listened to the audio portion of the podcast yet, check it out wherever you get your podcasts, Apple, Spotify, all of that good stuff. 4 final questions as we round the bases with Michelle Johnston. I didn't end up hearing any thunder throughout, so I think the storm passed, but what is hurricane season like? That'll be my first question for you down in New Orleans. I feel like you're all used to it, but it can't be the most fun of things.
It's tough, but I keep telling myself, right, because it's the scripts, how you talk to yourself, right, affects how you interact with the world. So the way I talk to myself about hurricane season is, well, at least we know it's coming. And at least we can prepare, right? So I look at that, and then I'm very blessed. I have a family who lives on a lake in South Carolina that I just head to if there's a hurricane barreling down. So you just have to prepare.
It's just part of the way it goes, right?
Yeah.
Okay, second question. We'll stick to the New Orleans theme before we move on, since you did dedicate your book to New Orleans. What is the best thing about New Orleans? I'm not saying favorite food or favorite music, or I don't know, maybe it's a combination of all of it, but I do think that there are a handful of cities in this country, and they all have their own heartbeat. They all have their own nuances and character. But New Orleans is one of the few cities in this country that just, there's no comparing it to anywhere else. Certainly not in the United States. And I think that there are a few that are like that, where you say there's only one, and that's New Orleans. So how would you describe your city?
I think there's just music in the air. When my daughter was little, there was a band called Imagination Movers, and they were on the Disney Channel, and they were from New Orleans. And my daughter, I remember at Jazz Fest, we take her to Jazz Fest, and she got to see the Imagination Movers. So anyhow, fast forward, and the Imagination Movers, right, are no longer on Disney. They grew up. Yet just the other day, I was just walking my dog around the corner in our little local dive bar right around the corner. There's Mover Rich, who is one of the Imagination Movers. And they're just having live music out in front of this dive bar. And the whole neighborhood is there with their chairs. And, you can carry your drinks to go. You can walk through the neighborhood with your beer in your hand. And it's just, I feel like there's just music, unexpected music on corners. During the pandemic, people, in order to keep the musicians alive, would have porch parties when we were in quarantine. And so there would, through a neighborhood post, whatever, next door neighbor, you'd find out, okay, the famous brass band is going to be on this corner this Friday night and that corner next Saturday night. So I think we're really good at just celebrating each other through music.
I haven't made it through all the way. It's an older show, but every now and then I'll pop it on HBO, Treme.
Oh, that was a great show.
Legit though, right? Like, I mean,
Totally
so the guy that did that is the guy that did The Wire, which is one of my favorite shows of all time.
Yeah.
And I think just because it's real, and it captured everything real in Baltimore, captured everything real in New Orleans. And sometimes I just like to, I'm a guy that's all over the place. So I don't, my wife jokes all the time that I'm watching like 8 shows at once, and it might take me 5 years, but that's just my attention span. But there's just something that the music, the culture, it just all comes out as almost feeling like a documentary.
Yeah, we spend money on food and on festivals and on that entertainment piece. I remember growing up, when my parents first started coming to New Orleans, they're like, you go out to restaurants all the time. We used to go out to restaurants just on special occasions, but every weekend you're trying new chefs and this new place and that. And I said, you're absolutely right. And we're all a minimum of 6 pounds heavier in the city than North American, for sure. But there is this celebration, whether it's music, it's food, it is this beautiful, let's experience life. And let's enjoy it. There's this joie de vivre that's really quite beautiful.
Third question as we round the bases, knowing that generations change, and now you get into a lecture hall, and the kids are your daughter's age, right? And so you probably feel in some ways like you can relate to them the way I can relate to the ball players now, because they're much closer to my kids' age. It's a little scary in many ways to me, because it makes me feel older, but I also understand them in many ways, and then don't understand them at all. But you did talk in the audio version of the podcast about how liberating it was to finally just be able to be yourself and not be what a professor is supposed to be. What's that relationship like now with you and your students?
Yeah, wow. Talk about attention spans. They can really only concentrate for these short nuggets of time. And so just having them say, I need you to put your phones over and I need to teach you how to concentrate and just look somebody in the eye and really give them your full attention is challenging, Joel. I mean, it is an addiction, you know,
Yep.
it is an addiction for them to feel like they need to be on their phone all the time. So what I try to look at my classroom experiences as laboratories, and I bring them in never to lecture. I bring them in to have experiences and to really learn valuable communication skills. And so we do a lot of role plays. It's a lot of interaction, a lot of group exercises. We'll watch I'm going to show them Ted Lasso for sure. We'll deconstruct that. A lot of etiquette and manners. How to create a positive culture. I thoroughly enjoy the classroom now because it's not that 3.5 hours of imparting information anymore. It's got to be thoroughly interactional.
That's fun, by the way, and just a total change from the way it was always done, which is what's supposed to happen. We're supposed to evolve, and it sounds as though the academic world, perhaps like the baseball world, can be slower than others to change because this is the way it's always been, which will get you into trouble. So, last question, the walk-off question. I think we were talking either right before we started or right when we started. I think I said something about is there hope, and then you lit up with absolutely there's hope. There's so much negativity in this world right now. I'm an optimist. I'm an eternal optimist. I'm a glass half full guy, always have been. But there's a lot to lot to drain that hope on an everyday basis. What gives you hope?
Well, the employees came out of the pandemic with more power than employees have ever had, ever. And so, although that was terrifying for those in charge and in leadership positions, it certainly has given us hope that there is a way to run companies, whether it's profit, nonprofit, to run sports teams in a much more positive way. You know, that Ted Lasso clip I was referring to you on 60 Minutes talked about the locker room being one of toxic masculinity and how they were on the show actively trying to change that. To make it much more compassion, one of compassion and kindness and positivity. So that's what brings me hope. And I'm not saying it's because the employees have more power than they have ever had before, but they're certainly in this labor shortage telling us that they're demanding more from where they spend more time in their lives and with their family is usually at the office with their coworkers, and they want more. I love that.
Yeah. Powerful final words with a lot of hope and insight as well. This was a lot of fun. I hope everybody will check out the audio version, Spotify, Apple, iTunes, wherever you get your podcast. Check out Michelle on her website, michellekjohnston.com. You can learn about her book. You can learn about her coaching, her speaking. Of course, she's a professor, and a podcast that may even have me coming to it soon, which I would love to do. I'm excited about that. Michelle, thanks so much for all this really, really fun, high energy, exciting conversation. And I'm glad the hurricane did not take you away. Well, it's not a hurricane. It's not a hurricane, but
it was just a thunderstorm. That's right. Joel, thank you
nothing.
so much. You are so fun and so cool. And I totally understand why you've been so successful. Can't wait to have you on my podcast. So I'll see you then. I'll be in touch. Okay.
Sounds good. You're too kind. Thanks, Michelle.